Hi, Nick Huston here for Gotham Sound and Communications with a first look at the new Sound Devices MixPre recorders, the MixPre-3 and the MixPre-6. As you can tell, these guys are pretty darn small. They're pretty darn small. They're really robust, nice kind of aluminum metal frame. And I guess let's start out by talking about the differences between the two or what they do. So the MixPre-3 has 3 inputs, 1, 2, 3, on 3 different XLRs, 1, 2, 3, while the MixPre-6 has 6 inputs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you get 5 and 6 on this stereo auxin jack. Other than that, they're pretty darn similar. So let's get rid of the MixPre-3 for a minute, and we'll just look at the MixPre-6. So as we mentioned, it's got all those different inputs. The outputs here, there's a stereo output there. USB-C used for charging, power, and data. And then another USB-A port that can be used for metadata entry and also factory service. You got your on-off switch here. On the other side, you got your headphones. You have this rotary knob, which is turns and also pushes in, very similar to a lot of this other Sound Devices products. The 633 or the 6 series and the 7 series all have this kind of rotary knob. You've got an HDMI for timecode in, and then a couple of interesting things in the back. So this is where, if you're not plugged in via the USB-C, this is where your power is going to come from. So to take this off, to change your batteries, you just pull that clip here and you see the AA batteries. Also underneath here is your SD card where you're going to do all your recording to. And then a couple other interesting things. There's this lock screw, okay, which is used for when mounting this underneath the DSLR, and this Allen key. So the lock screw goes in here, and you would just screw that in here like that to give it a nice fit underneath the DSLR. And then the Allen key slots in right underneath there, makes that quarter 20 screw pop up, and then you could screw it right into the bottom of the DSLR. Now, one thing that's cool about how they did this is, see, there's a little magnet right there. So, you know, that set screw is pretty small, and you could see it just kind of falling out if it wasn't fastened in with a pretty robust magnet. Anyway, that's the back. In terms of powering options, there are other, you know, in addition to AA, Sound Devices makes a Sony L series mount, which clicks on exactly the same way. So you would just find the latch, boom, boom, like that. We're not going to do that. That would give you extended battery life if you wanted to, but we'll just use our AA batteries because we're not going to be going for more than 4 hours. If we are, we're in big trouble. Okay, so let's look, now let's look on the front and we'll turn it on. One other thing you'll notice here is the difference between the 3 and the 6 is that the 3 does not have this little button here. So as we go through it, we'll find out exactly what that little button does. All right, so we turn it on using the on-off switch, and it comes on. This is I should note, this is a pre-release version, by the way. They will not, these are supposed to be shipping this week, so they should be shipping by May 19th. But the firmware that you see on here is a pre-release version, so some things may change in the interface, but we're not expecting that to change so much. All right, other cool things. So this is a touchscreen, and it's a pretty easy, you know, pretty simple to use touchscreen, pretty responsive. So you click in different parts of the touchscreen to get to different things. So if I click there, it brings me to metadata entry. If I click here, it changes the tracks that I'm looking at. So now I'm looking at left, right, and all of the ISOs. Now I'm looking at left, right, and the USB. If I click here, it drops me into the menu. And if I click down the bottom, it changes what it's showing me down the bottom. So I can see the date and the time, or I can see you know, how many hours are left on the media, what I'm monitoring, you know, my record settings, all that fun stuff. So that's pretty neat. And so then in terms of all these buttons, reasonably self-explanatory transport controls, play, stop, and record. And then this one here is really to get you to channels 5 and 6. As you remember, you can have up to 6 ISO channels, 6 discrete channels by using the aux-in. It's a stereo aux-in. So these are how you get to the controls for channels 5 and 6 quickly. And to get to the controls for channels 1 through 4 quickly, all you do is very similar to other Sound Devices product where you would have a switch above the input, the channel input. This one you just push in the knob and boom, you've got your controls for the channel. So let's set up a microphone on channel 1, okay? So what we'll do, we'll just plug in this mic over here. It's a Sennheiser. And it's actually already set up because we were doing a test, but a couple of things you can do from the screen. So number one, you can see what the input gain just on that channel is. Over here, you see that there are 3 circles. One is black and the other 2 are empty. So if you tap there, you can just shuttle through the different menus. So now we see a couple of different menus. And then we've got the home button to go back. So first part of the menu, you can solo, you can arm and disarm the track. You can change the gain, which when you press the gain, you can either touch the screen to bring the gain up or down, or you can use the rotary knob on the side, which the rotary knob is a lot easier to use. You'll also notice that it has something very similar to the Sound Devices 7 series, where when a channel is overmodulating or peaking, it lights up orange. So right now we are hitting the limiter on channel 1, so we're just going to go ahead and turn the gain back down to about 50%. Okay, you can also do the pan for left and right. Pop out of the gain there. You can select whether it's a mic line input, whether it does whether phantom power is on or not. You can adjust the low cut. You can adjust the phase. And you can link and unlink and set delay. So pretty robust controls, all very simple and in one place. So there, you would have that for each input 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we look at other things in the menu, so we'll go back to the main screen. If we want to look at other things in the menu just to see what's happening here, there's a whole once you're in there, you can change what you're listening to on the headphones. So right now we're listening to USB 1 and 2. You can change it to left and right stereo, left and right mono, or any other number of presets. You can also edit your presets. So the simple stuff is at the top, the powerful stuff is at the bottom, but you can configure it, you can custom configure it however you like. So I'm just going to go ahead and put us in left and right stereo, because that's normally what we'd be looking for. One cool thing about this is a lot of people, probably won't know about this push button thing that we just talked about. So when you go into the inputs, you can get to channel 5 and 6 very quickly. And if you want to set up the other inputs, you go to setup and it'll actually tell you, hey, don't go here, just push the button here. So it will let you know that if that's not intuitive for you, if you haven't used Sound Devices before, it'll let you know that that's something that you need to do. And once you've done it once, you'll never forget again. The other thing on this mode is what is this aux-in jack doing? So you can actually go in here and say, is this the mic? Is this a mic in? Is this a line in? Is this a camera return? Is it time code, or do you want it off? So in order for it to take time code from that jack, it needs to be on and it needs to be set to time code, which is we have it set here. So as we have it set up now with the time code on, if we go back home, back to the home screen, you notice this kind of empty dots here where time code would normally be. If we take this handy dandy time code box that we just happen to have here, and we take it and we plug it in like that, you see we have time code running now. Okay, so this, and this brings up a very important note. This is a time code recorder. It does not have a time code generator into it. So if you want to record time code, you're going to either have to feed it time code from an external generator like this, like a sync box or another recorder or any really any timecode generator, or you can set timecode through the HDMI in, which is particularly useful if you're mounting it underneath a DSLR. So it can actually take the timecode from your DSLR and put that on your track so that when you go to sync everything in post, it'll work. One other thing that I wanted to point out about what this comes with. So it comes with everything you've already seen. It also comes with this fancy USB-C cable. Okay, so on one side it's got two USBs. One is for power and one is for data. And then the USB-C is on this side. I'm going to plug this in now just so I can run off of AC power so the batteries don't die, because that would be somewhat embarrassing. So you're just going to see me below the table for a while. There we go. Okay, so we'll plug that in. And another thing you'll notice on the screen is that the battery indicator changes from a battery to a plug. So that's pretty interesting. So that's how you indicate that it's good. All right, let's keep drilling through the menu. So we've learned how to set up an input, and we've learned how to set up timecode. So now let's see what other things we can learn. You can adjust your project settings. So you can start it, you can have a new project, you can have different projects going at the same time. So if you're doing day play work as a film or as a sound recordist, you can say, okay, so this project is working on this commercial, and now I'm working on this indie film, and you can have them labeled and you can switch back and forth. Or if you are working on a documentary and you want to have just a new folder every day, you can do that. Or if you're a musician and you are recording different tracks, you can change the name of the project for each different song or for each different album, or however you want to do it. So we'll just create a new project with a custom name, and it actually asks you, do you want to use the name or the date? A lot of times you might just use the date, but today we'll use the name. So this screen is exactly like the Sound Devices 6 series screen. The only difference is it is a touch screen, so you can do all that stuff. Oh, actually, you can't. I'm totally wrong. You're going to use the scroll knob on the side to do this. Okay. I guess they realized that it was just too darn small. So you're going to scroll over to what you want and push in the button to make it select. There we go. So once we have that, we can just hit OK on the touch screen. And so now the name of our project is Gotham. Okay, but that doesn't mean that that's the name of our file. So if we want to change the name of our file, we're going to go to, we're going to click at the top, go to Edit, okay, and we can change the name, number, and notes. So the name, we'll have it be, we'll delete some things, okay, and then we'll just have it be test. Okay, and this is really nice to be able to keep things labeled. How many times have you actually recorded something and it's got some weird kind of funky name? You can rename this as many times as you want. It increments the number. So this is usually the scene and take number, but it increments the number every time you hit record. So if I hit record now, we're recording test 01. And then if I hit stop and hit record again, it goes to test 02. Now the other thing that is neat that all the Sound Devices products do is you can enter additional metadata information, not just the file name, but you can also rename the tracks. So if you had, if track 1 was, let's say, a guitar, you could go ahead and label it guitar, which would require me knowing how to spell guitar, which I may or may not know how to do, but hopefully the writing is too small for you to be able to read this. Okay, and then what's nice about this is once you actually do the recording, you can, that information will come into your session. Yeah.
Paul Isaacs wants to mention that you can use a USB keyboard as well.
Right, yeah, no, Paul's totally right. Paul's a Sound Devices Pro, and yeah, you can use this USB port on the side with any USB keyboard.
Not the Apple one, though.
Except the Apple one. any Windows-based USB keyboard to enter metadata information. That includes wireless keyboards. So like we use the keyboards a lot, and that would work here too. The other thing that we should mention, and we'll get to that later, there is a way to connect to it via Bluetooth and the Sound Devices Wingman app, which would do the same thing. Okay? All right, so that's that metadata information. Let's get back to the home menu. And by the way, for anybody who's watching right now, if you want to chime in, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I'm happy to stop and answer whatever you might be curious about. All right, so we've talked about the project, we've talked about metadata settings. Let's look at the output screen. What do you want to do with the left channel, with the right channel? What's the gain? So this is their routing screen. So this is the left channel. So you can actually change what the left side of this stereo menu input is listening to. So right now it's set just to listen to the mix, the left channel of your mix, but you could have it be whatever you want. You could actually take that away and you could say, you know what, I just want to have channel 1 go out. And right now channel 1 is lit up blue, which means it's post-fader. If we hit it again, it'll go green and it'll go out pre-fader, meaning that no matter what, you'll always be hearing channel 1 going out of the left side of that. You can also route your aux inputs and your USB inputs to your outputs. So if you wanted to, I don't know, let's say you were taking a return feed from a camera and you wanted to pass it along to somebody else, you could do that. If you wanted to have an additional set of headphones or going out to some speakers, you could have the USB inputs routed to your stereo outputs. But that's a rough way of listening or of showing how this works. Okay? Did I cover that well enough, Joey? I'm not on, I don't have a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good? Okay, great.
I do have one question while we're still kind of here. Is there an easy way to control, set the trims? I'm thinking of possible future ambisonic mic use from Howard Lovecraft.
As I understand it, you can link the inputs. So if you are, if you push the trims right there, to go into input 1 and then you go all the way to the end menu, you can link them right there. Right now, it's just channels 1 and 2 that you can link. So you would have to set the gain on each one, on each pair individually, which one thing that's nice about this is you can actually see, you can actually see the gain. You can see the gain, so you could very quickly pop between 1, and then if you were to link 3 and 4 together, there we go, then you can set the gain to exactly the same thing. So let's see, the gain was at 61 here, the gain would need to be at 61 here as well. But I think I'm set to line level, so that's why it's being a little crazy. Let me see, am I? I'm set to USB 1, that's not going to work at all. And you can actually route different inputs to different pieces of the mixer, which is kind of neat as well. Okay, so you can do that. As I understand it, there are going to be future firmware iterations that will allow you to link channels 1 through 4, but it's not going to be available in this initial release. Okay? All right, anything else?
Is there a pre-roll setting?
Is there a pre-roll setting? Let's keep digging and we'll see what we find. I've had about half an hour with this before this live stream, so I have yet to commit everything to memory. But I would guess there is one somewhere. All right, so now we're moving on to the second portion of the menu screen where let's peek in at this record. We've got our record settings, left and right linked, left and right gain, all that stuff. Bit depth, record trigger. Nope, there's no pre-roll in there. Let's see, we've got our timecode menu, which this is where you set where you're getting the timecode from. So right now we're getting an auxin 1. You can also set it to the time of day. So it won't generate timecode for you, but it'll just have timecode on it. And you also have aux 2 and HDMI TCN. So one thing that happens here when you're using, when you're not doing that.
No.
Oh, okay.
There's no pre-roll.
There's no pre-roll.
Paul Isaacs from Sound Devices.
All right, Paul Isaacs says there's no pre-roll. So Paul knows. All right, perfect. So one thing also that you should know is while this is a 6-channel recorder, if you're going to use timecode from one of the auxins, you're using up one of your inputs, so it becomes a 5 discrete channel recorder with 2 mixes as opposed to 6 discrete with 2 mix tracks. Okay? And you can also set it to use the HDMI TCN or just have timecode off. Which if you're not, if you're not using a timecode based camera, if you're just recording music, or if you're recording a podcast, or if you're recording nature sounds, you don't need timecode, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so let's go back. With the tone, you can turn tone on and off. So if you need to set levels for any reason whatsoever, you can. If you're feeding something from this and you need some kind of a reference level, you can turn tone on. And you'll see that when we go home, we've got tone up there, we've got tone across the left and right tracks. Okay? I'm going to turn the tone off because we don't need tone on right now. And you can also change the tone, the level of it. You can make it so that the left channel will just kind of go on and off, kind of flash, which I guess I'll show you that. Why not? That's always fun. There you go. So you can see the left channel going up and down. And that's so you can pick out between the left channel and the right channel very easily at your source. All right, so let's get the tone off. Continue going on. SD card, this is where you're going to manage basically manage your card, so you can empty the trash if you've deleted files, or you can format the card. Are you sure? Yes, are you really sure? Yes, we're really, really sure. Okay, so that's just, again, that's one of the Sound Devices precautions that they've always had, making sure you're very, very, very sure before you delete everything. And then the last menu gives you a couple of different options. You can adjust your date and time, which pretty self-explanatory. You can say what this kind of multifunction button does. So right now it's set to the channel 5 and 6 toggle screen, but you can have it go to your project settings, you can have it go to your SD card, or you can have it go to the solo mute screen, which I don't know what that is. So I'm really curious to find that out. Cool. So this way you can very quickly solo or mute. Aha. You can solo or mute different inputs. Huh, neat, okay. Very cool. And then the other thing that I saw that it had was that you could actually turn it into an undo button. So you can just fix, if you accidentally mess something up, you have kind of a back button, which is, that's neat. So what else do we have in here? All right, we got system preferences. So right now we're in advanced mode. There is a simple mode, which gives you less options, but is simpler to use. You can tell it what the USB-C is going to be used for, what your USB-C connector is going to be used for. Your options are audio or just power. Right now we've got it set to audio, so we can connect it to a computer and just kind of see it work. File transfer, which is file transfer mode. So when you're connected to a computer, you can mount it as a very expensive SD card reader, which if you don't have one, that's super handy. You can turn the limiters on and off. It does have Bluetooth, so it will work with the Sound Devices Wingman app on any iOS device. So whether it's an iPhone or an iPad, you download the free app and you can actually remote control this thing with via Bluetooth. Change the brightness, you can check the version, and lastly, you can update firmware. And what does regulatory mean? Aha, interesting. Some FCC stuff if you decide you want to read about it. Neat. Okay. And last but not least, the power. You can tell it what kind of batteries you're using so that the power gauge can be accurate, which actually, it's not accurate right now because we are using alkaline. There. Okay. So, any questions, Joey?
No, but Carlos had a great question that Paul answered, which is there any limit on the SD card capacity? And Paul says 512 gigabytes. 512
gigabytes is the SD card limit, and I believe, we don't know, but I believe that Sound Devices will put out approved media lists for this. Sound Devices has been very, very good about vetting media for their machines to make sure that if there's a failure, that there are no weak points in your recording chain. So Sound Devices has their own proprietary media, 32 gig SD cards that are available, but on their website, for the 6 series, they have other medias that are approved, SanDisk, Delkin, for use with their recorders. So you should definitely make sure to get good media so that the media doesn't cause your recording to fail. Anything else? Okay. So let's move right. So the interesting thing about this is that it's a multi-purpose tool. So in addition to being a recorder that you can take out into the field and is battery powered, and you can record whatever you want with it. You can record some bird sounds, or you can record some bands, or you can record, put a documentary, putting it on the bottom of a DSLR or an interview, or however. It really gives you a lot of flexibility because it's DC powered. It gives you even more flexibility because it's also an audio interface for a computer. So, what's nice about this is that it gives you kind of an extra tool in your pocket for if you need to do something like that. So for the freelance sound mixers out there, this might be something good to use as a Skype interface. Where you're on a TV show. Like often happened to me on the set of a reality show where they're like, oh, we're going to do a Skype interview. Can't you just put the microphone right next to it and it'll pick it up fine? It kind of sounds like garbage. With this, you can actually take the feed from the Skype interview out via, and record it using timecode. And then also you can take a feed from the talent's microphone and put it back into the computer so they have a good feed as well, which is kind of nice. So that just gives you a little bit of that. Or if you are somebody that does music and you want to be able to record your own music on your computer using Pro Tools or something like that, you can use this as a high quality interface to be able to get into your computer and also come back out of your computer for monitoring. And then you have the same thing that you can just take on the road and hit record on very simply, and then use that and bring it right back in. So let's just show how that works really quick. So if you change to the computer screen, we have a very rudimentary demo set up. So we are going to use Audacity, okay, because it's free. All right, and if we just look here, you'll see our interface shows up as digital audio interface MixPre, and then the speakers we're going to use as the MixPre. And I've got a microphone hooked up already, so I'm just going to turn the gain down on this mic a little bit because it was definitely going a little bit into the red. But if we go back to that, so now I'll hit record, and you can see that now we're getting waves. Okay, so we're getting the left channel because I linked the darn thing, but we're getting the computer's actually interacting with the MixPre. If I hit stop, okay, and now if we go back to this thing. Okay, you can also see if you look at your meters, if you change your meters from, so you can see U1 and U2, and now I hit play on the computer, you can see that we're getting the USB audio 1 and 2 coming back from the computer. So it works exactly how an audio interface is supposed to work. It just happens to have DC power and timecode built in with 4 really high quality mic pre's. I think, Joey, anything else? We're waiting for Joe.
Look, Howard has a question. He simply asks Skype/computer timecode. Howard, you were asking if it can be done if you're doing a Skype call, can you also do timecode?
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely, if you were recording the Skype call on this, and you could actually route, it's actually interesting because one thing we didn't do before is, if you look at, I'm going to unlink these things before it drives me insane. So let's say you had one person who was on a Skype call, right? So you've got them mic'd up, you've got them going into your inputs right now, okay? So you can do that, and that's fine. Great. All right, so you would have them on, let's say, input 1, okay? And then you want to have input 2, and you want to actually hear what's going on over the USB, or you want to add that into a mixer. However, you can go to the input, and you can change the input from mic not only to line, but you can also change it to USB 1, USB 2, USB 3, 4. So you can actually have a feed from the computer's output coming into the MixPre. Now you're recording both of them separately. You're recording your microphone for the person that you're with, and you're recording the Skype feed for the person that you're next to. And then if you want to do timecode for it, you just plug timecode in on your auxiliary timecode right there. So that it's, boom, that's all you would need. Or if time of day is important for you, you can just have it be time of day. But absolutely, you can record a Skype interview with timecode, whether it's time of day or external LTC. And don't tell Sound Devices I just knocked over their demo unit. Nobody saw that. Anything else?
Yeah, Alejandro Reyes asked, when installing an SD card of a large size, like 512 gigabytes, does it take a really long time for the device to turn on? And Paul says, nope, about 5 seconds. So
great.
It's kind of good news there. And Gio Lima says hello to you.
Hi, Gio. Okay, we're good. Great. So that's a long look at the Sound Devices MixPre recorders, the MixPre-3 and the MixPre-6. They're going to be available real soon. Yeah, they're going to be available really soon. So if you would like to see this video or other videos that we've made, you can check out our video archives at gothamsound.tv. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest news. And if you have any ideas or questions, and by ideas, I mean ideas for what you would like to see us do, with the exception of me dancing, you can email those to info@gothamsound.com. Thank you so much for watching.